welcome. You're watching the F&O Show on BloombergQuint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I'm Navneet Dsouza.
Good morning. I'm Agam Vakil, and here are the top headlines this hour. The Nifty advances for the 7th straight day and the India Wix falls, but open interest in Syndicate Bank and V-Guard increases as traders take fresh positions in their respective futures. And tech stocks continue to surge. Infosys and Tech Mahindra among the top Nifty gainers in today's day of trade. And Hindustan Zinc, on the other hand, is a top loser on the Nifty today after a brokerage firm, CIMB, reduced its ratings, citing zinc fundamentals are weakening.
All right, let's take a look as to what's happening in the futures and options market today. Well, clearly, all eyes are on the 10,400 mark on Nifty as we've seen some incremental gains after the opening session. If you look at Nifty, currently that's trading very close to the 10,400 mark. The futures have actually crossed that mark, just about that 10,400. The premium has slipped mildly from yesterday's session. It's hovering around those levels of 12 to 15. And the spot Nifty is at 10,387. Let's also do a check on the Bank Nifty. Then what's that doing? Bank Nifty has been underperforming a bit in the past few sessions, and today it is trading above the 25,800 mark. So some gains seen there as well, up almost 0.3%. And open interest addition continues on Bank Nifty November futures. Yesterday it went up by almost 2%, and currently it's up as much as 3%. Very interesting data when it comes to the option side, Agam. Look at the 10,400 put strike. I'm not talking about the 10,300 strike, which has been active in the past few sessions, and put writers were really active there. But today the 10,400 strike, almost 1 hour into the session, it's added 10.5 lakh shares. So that's telling you that put writers of the strike may be confident that they can see the mark of 10,400 in today's session. But on the call side, unwinding scene for strikes like 10,400, 10,500. So that's a positive sign. Some unwinding scene on the call side, and 10,300 and 400 has seen major addition coming about once again today. And clearly, Agam, the eyes are on the 10,400 strike. Just want to mark here, in the last 3 sessions, Nifty tried inching very close to that mark, but it failed. So important to see whether we can touch and close above that mark.
Certainly very crucial, Navneet, and I agree with you there. Let's also take a look at some of the stocks which are doing well in today's day of trade, and perhaps also gaining in terms of open interest, and some unusual ones. So there you have it. So Syndicate Bank gaining 19% in open interest. The stock itself is also up 4%, so longs building up there. We have V-Guard also surging nearly 3%, again near 13% OI increase there. NCC has picked up some amount of pace over the last couple of days, as a matter of fact. So it's been, very, very active, and again today another 6-7% added there. Union Bank and Oracle Financial among the other counters looking at some amount of activity in terms of unwinding, and this is around the time when we start seeing a little more unwinding coming through, because we will be moving into expiry week. But Bata India looking at weaknesses after Motilal Oswal has downgraded the stock to sell, down by as much as 2%. And we are looking at longs unwinding, so the open interest has declined by as much as 5%. Fortis Healthcare, MRPL, Indocount and NBCC among the other counters which are looking at some amount of unwinding, but it will certainly be Syndicate Bank and Bata, and I will be keeping an eye on Navneet today.
All right, so a lot of stock futures to keep an eye on today. But before we get our guest on the show, here's a reminder. If you have any queries regarding the futures and options market, you can call us now on 022-4540-4141, or you can also write to us on Twitter, Facebook with AskBQ hashtag. Let's welcome our F&O experts for the day then. Navneet Daga of IIFL Wealth and Hemant Thukral of Aditya Birla Money joins us on the show now. Good morning to both of you, gentlemen, and appreciate you joining us today on BloombergQuint Live. Hemant, very active put writing has been seen for 10,300 and as well as the 10,400 strike just in that 1 hour of trade. Do you think the template is changing? Because in the last 3 sessions, we were giving up the opening gains, but today there have been some incremental gains which have come about post the opening session.
See, I think, good morning. I think what you and Agam explained was in a very beautiful manner, that today what we have seen is that put writers have shifted the base, or I would say attempt to shift base to 10,400 from 10,300, and 10,300 was not breaking. That was always a good sign, and today eventually we are even seeing some call unwinding in 10,400. and as always we have discussed, the VIX has receded again from 14. So these all things are telling me that maybe a small mini breakout has come in. I am still of this view, we may not be able to cross 10,500 in this series, because as I shared last time also, the data point suggests that if you have a 60 lakh plus OI, it is difficult to cross that level. But can we move towards 10,480, 10,500? Yes, the chances have increased. So I would be definitely looking at it, and I would be watching 10,350 very closely also, because I have started seeing some put writers emerging there. So now unless until 10,350 is violated, chances of testing 10,480, 10,500 have increased. But as I said, I would still feel that 10,500 will be a resistance point.
There you have it. 10,500 may provide as a resistance out there. But Navneet, good morning to you as well. You are expecting some amount of consolidation. Of course, this is keeping in mind that we are also moving into expiry week. Can you take us through what your view is when it comes to the benchmark indices?
Well, coinciding with a similar kind of a view, whereby we believe that now the 10,300 has become a very formidable kind of a support level for the market, and as we move, as we are attempting to break above the last couple of the days trading range on the higher side, 10,390 on the higher side, it's likely chances that we might see some kind of a more call writing, call short covering happening. Call writers, those who have written the positions, might be able to cut the positions on the higher side. It's looking likely that scenario might be playing out. So the gradual move on the higher side, but again, I'm not expecting 10,500 levels to be taken out in the hurry in this expiry. So the broader trading range of 300 to 500 range will play out in this expiry. That's what our view is basically.
Well, we did see the FIs also covering a couple of their short positions in both index as well as the option side in yesterday's trade, index futures as well as options. Okay, then let's shift our focus to options corner now. Navneet Daga has a short strangle strategy on Nifty. But before we take a look at his strategy, let's see what it exactly means. A short strangle is when one sells an out-of-the-money call and an out-of-the-money put in anticipation of decrease in volatility. The strategy becomes profitable when the volatility decreases, followed by contraction in options premium. Navneet, over to you. Well, clearly we have seen the India VIX receding today. Could you take us through your option strategy?
Well, the strategy is basically a short strangle strategy. We're selling at 10,300 put options and simultaneously selling at 10,500 call options for the November series. The premium inflow would be in the range of 45 to 48 points in the current market price. And to my understanding, what basically the strategy is basically not playing a breakout or breakdown trade in this market, and still believing that the market, the lower end support of 10,300 as the put writers of almost 6.9 million shares are holding on. That support will hold on, and similarly on the higher side of 10,500 there would be a resistance point for the markets. So playing for that range trade, and I'm hoping that the expiry would be in between this range with a positive bias on the higher side. So that strategy can be played out with a stop loss of 80 points on the spread, and the target price of 10 rupees on the spread on this trade can be worked out.
And Hemant, what about you? I noticed your continuation of the trade that you have been advising over the past few sessions.
Yes, basically I am looking at buying Bank Nifty call today, and the reason behind is the way Bank Nifty has crossed 25,800. And if you see, Agam, what is happening in put writers, there is the call writers are only stabilizing around 26,000. So that tells me that call writers have no confidence apart from 26,000 levels. So that gives me another 150 to 100 points to play with. So that's why I'm recommending a 25,800 call. So that would be quoting around 169, 170. Keep a stop loss of 139, which will coincide if it moves back below 27,700, and target would be 235, which eventually will only come if it manages to touch 25,950. So I feel 26,000 may be tough to cross, but 25,950, 25,980 is on cards, unless Bank Nifty disappoints and goes back below 25,700.
Hemant, before we go across to active stock futures of the day, just want to understand, do you think is Bank Nifty out of its consolidation phase? Because in the last 3 to 4 sessions, it was underperforming.
I definitely feel that that Bank Nifty is making an attempt. Yes, and if you see why I'm saying is because from last 3 days it was struggling to cross this 25,800 level. Today it has managed to do that. It has definitely come from off highs, but the way it is still managing to hold above 25,800, I feel that 25,950, 26,000 testing is definitely on cards. And one more thing which is important for me is the way HDFC Bank, and I'm seeing even buying coming in IndusInd Bank today. So a lot of banks which were left out, they are also seeing some buying coming in. So whenever there is a combination of PSU banks and private banks both trying to move, then Bank Nifty definitely gives a bigger move. So I think 25,950 should be on cards.
Okay, so let's bring up Bata then, because this is a stock which has seen substantial amount of gains over the previous 1 week on anticipation of positive news when it comes to the leather industry. That news didn't come around, and after that we've seen a little bit of a correction for Bata, a little bit of a reversal, so to speak. And as we speak, it's looking at longs unwinding. Still at 735, you also had a Motilal Oswal downgrade on the stock, and they're putting a price target of well below 600 rupees per share. So that said, Navneet, at least in the near term, what can one do with Bata? Say, for example, if they had a long position just a couple of days ago, and if at all someone wants to go and take a short position right now, what would you advise them to do?
Well, I would advise that a short position can be taken at these current levels as well, because we've seen a massive unwinding of the long futures position in today's sessions as well, and it's a continuation of a trend whereby we've seen a declines coming off almost from 800 levels to 735 odd. Now the formidable resistance point would be somewhere near to 760 odd zone. To my understanding, even if somebody is looking to spread its orders towards 735 to 750 odd zone and keeping a stop loss of 760 on the higher side, it's looking likely that the retest of somewhere in the zones of 690 to 700 is absolutely possible in the series itself. Still 5 days trading sessions left before the expiry, so the chances that the downside support are likely to be tested again on this on the lower side.
Okay, that's the view on Bata India. Hemant was talking about the banking counters. The mid-cap banking stocks, which are also in the F&O side, are seeing some gains today. You have stocks like IndusInd Bank, Syndicate Bank, which have seen gains. Not only that, Oriental Bank, Andhra Bank, RBL Bank, all of these banks are trading in the positive territory. Hemant, I have a question for you. In Syndicate Bank, it is seeing both price action as well as action on the open interest side. We've seen a good build-up coming about there. At current levels, do you think it's well placed to take a fresh long here?
See, definitely. There are two major reasons behind that. Even when the PSU banks were correcting, Syndicate Bank did not give away 87, 88, 86 levels. Very clearly the base was shifting up, the stock was outperforming its peers, and today what we have seen is given virtually a breakout above that 91, 92 levels. So yes, if you are buying at current levels, you may see it again coming off till 92, 93, but I don't see any problem in that, and I see a target of 99, 100, even 102, so one should definitely make fresh longs. And if you are taking a long today, then the stop loss has to be 91, where it has given a breakout from.
Okay, so that's the view on Syndicate Bank, which has been buzzing today, but we'll move on and address some of our queries. And let's take a caller right at the top. We have Isha Sharma calling us from New Delhi. Hi Isha, thanks for calling us. Tell us, what would you like to know from our experts?
Yeah, hi. I wanted to know, how should I approach the expiry week? Is it advisable to take any position today on Nifty and Nifty Bank?
All right. Well, Navneet, I'll come to you on this one. She wants to get an idea about how she should position herself for the expiry week. Anything that you can recommend on the Nifty or the Nifty Bank? I know that you do have a short strangle, if I'm not mistaken, on the Nifty. Anything that you can tell us about the Nifty Bank?
Look, Nifty Bank is also in a very good shape. In the last week also we said that we might again retest and approach towards a level 26,000 on the higher side. But making a dash above the 26,000 levels, it's looking unlikely in this series itself, because there is a heavy call writing position still. Open interest is quite heavy at 26,000 levels on Bank Nifty futures, Bank Nifty call strikes. So to my understanding, if you are an aggressive trader, you can write the OTM puts options or somewhere near 25,500 levels, and that's where you try to eat up the premium in the market. And if you are a futures traders, one can still look to be long on the Bank Nifty with the stop loss of 25,600 levels on the lower side. It's looking likely that 26,000 might be possible in the series itself.
Okay, let's move on. We are getting some live queries. Pawan has written to us on Facebook. He wants to know the movement in Yes Bank in today's trade. If you could just pull up the future of Yes Bank and see how that's been trading in today's session. As Hemant was suggesting, the banking counters are seeing some gains, but I guess the majority of the gains today are for the PSU banking space. Hemant, anything that you can suggest, Pawan, on Yes Bank?
See, there are two things in Yes Bank. One, if you wait patiently, I think Yes Bank is on a bottom formation way. Why I'm saying that is not because of this series. Even in next series, if you see 290, 300 put writers are trying to form positions. This entire month, the stock has respected 300 put writers. So that means the bottom formation is happening. Yes, it is not participating in the rally that we have seen, in fact, from last 7 to 10 days. Even after such a steep correction post results, it's not participating in the rally. The second, what he can wait is it should cross 318 on closing basis, or in the last half an hour. If he sees it sustaining above 318, then he can enter the stock, because then at least he knows that stock is going to run till 335. So I would either he can wait technically to cross 318, or the other way around is have faith on put writers, the way they are building up positions, start trying to accumulate the stock. I think stock is on a verge of forming a bottom, and once it gives a breakout above 318, then a serious rally will shape up.
Alright, so you should be waiting for 318 on Yes Bank, but we'll go and take another query then, and this one again is from Facebook. Vijay has 2 lots of Lupin 900 call, and he wants to know if it is advisable to hold this position. Well, if the Lupin 900 call, if I'm not mistaken, oh, there you have it. Okay, so the premium is currently at 3 points. Navneet, what can Vijay do with his position if you consider the way Lupin panned out, and whether or not he could hold on to his long positions of the 900 call?
Well, I would say straight away exit at the current market price as well. Look, the expiry is nearing. We got almost 5 days left for the expiry. Lupin is underperforming the broader market as well, and it's a lot of pressure on the higher side of 850 as well. 900 call options are almost holding the maximum open interest of almost 8.5 lakh shares. So it does not make sense to carry on this position, because you lose on the time value, as well as the direction trade is also not in the favor. So I would say immediately exit at the current market price as well.
Okay, exit is the call on Lupin. Well, it's that time of the show when we get you some trading strategies on individual stocks from our experts. Hemant, you have 2 long calls for the day.
Yes, basically I have gone long on 2 stocks which have seen some sort of small breakout with open interest additions. One is Oriental Bank of Commerce. I feel yes, Syndicate Bank has done good, but I also feel OBC is falling in the same bracket. It's moved above 130, 131, which was acting as a stiff resistance. So I would play OBC also as a stop loss 128 and a target 137. I see open interest getting added up. Second is Raymond. This is a very interesting stock, because the stock has been consolidating off late a lot between 930 to 970, and now suddenly today it's seen a spike above that 975 levels. So I have a feeling that there's a small breakout in this stock, and the stock can test 1025. So one should go long, keeping a stop loss of 975.
All right, so those are views coming from Hemant. Navneet, you are recommending to go long on Tata Global Beverages and BEML. Can you take us through those?
Look, the first call is on Tata Global Beverages. I'm reiterating my buy call on this. The last week that we had talked, we had levels were 260 and we have given a target price of 218. That target price have already met, and still maintaining that this stock is in a very fine shape and on the higher side. And it's looking the way the call writers are unwinding the positions from straight from levels up to almost 250 odd levels to 280. It's giving us me feeling that still the higher possible targets of somewhere near to 300 is possible on this stock. So I'll place a stop loss of 260 and revise and play for the long target on this of 300 on the higher side. So one can still initiate at the levels of 275 to 277 at the current market price and look for a target of 300 in the series itself. The second call is on BEML. The stock has found a very strong support zone of somewhere in the levels of 1640 and it has reversed from that support zone and the trading higher at 1700, 1710 levels. To my understanding, the way I am looking at the options data as well, the way the call writers are unwinding positions, as well as some kind of a more higher activity on the future side is also visible. So to my understanding, it's looking likely that the targets of 1770 is also possible in BEML. I'll place a stop loss now at 1665 and play for the long side trade.
Okay, so those are a couple of trading strategies from our experts, Hemant as well as Navneet. Appreciate both of you joining us today and giving us your views on the derivatives market and also helping our viewers with their queries. And Agam, as we speak, Infy's crossed the 1,000 mark. I don't know after how many months. I think last we saw was in the month of August. Infy's seen some incremental gains in today's session after seeing some gains yesterday. So that's the Infy futures. No major build-up, but the stock is trading around those levels of 1,005. Okay, let's shift focus and talk about Skipper, a company which reported mixed September quarter. Profits declined more than 30%. The company also entered into a joint venture for drip irrigation business. To discuss the quarter gone by and more about this deal, we're joined by Devane Bansal, who's a director of the company. Hi Devane, good morning to you and thanks a lot for joining us today on BloombergQuint. Could you take us through the highlights of the quarter gone by and also talk to us a little bit about the new JV around the drip irrigation side?
Hi, good morning. So the quarter has been fairly good for Skipper this time around as well. Top line growth has been very, very good at close to about 30%. The dip in profits that you just mentioned was mostly on account of the change in accounting standards. So if you look at our last year's reported EBITDA profit of Q2 to FY16, there's been a growth of 20%. This time around, but because of the change in accounting standards, there seems to be a dip in profits. So on that front, the company performance has been absolutely at par. In fact, the guidance that we'd given of EBITDA operating numbers of close to about 13 to 14% have been maintained in this quarter as well. I'm sorry. On the JV front, yes, we are very excited about this new JV that the board has in principle agreed to. Medzer Plus is one of the largest and most technically sound drip irrigation companies out of Israel. They operate in multiple countries across the world. And now Skipper is getting into a JV with them, which will hopefully start sometime in the beginning of next year.
Okay, Devesh, just a question on your order book. From what I understand, about well over half of your order book comes from Power Grid. We'd like to know about your efforts to diversify your order book from here on. If you can tell us anything about your plans.
Yeah, so if you look at our order book about 3 years back, almost 90% of our order book was based on Power Grid. As on today, it's about 50%, with the balance coming from state electricity boards, private developers, as well as 25% of our order book currently is on the international business. So we try and maintain a fair balance in our order book portfolio to ensure that in case of any slowdown in any of these sectors, we are more than compensated from the other areas. Just recently, Power Grid has announced some major capex plans for the next 5 years. So on the whole, the macro of the sector looks very, very bullish.
Devesh, sorry I got your name wrong in the beginning, but just want to check on the debt picture. I think the total debt on the book, according to the investor presentation that you've given to the exchanges, is almost 412 crore. And I've seen the interest cost in the first half of this financial year has seen just a mild bit of uptick if I compare it to last year. What's the debt to equity and how are you working to reduce the debt?
So our debt to equity has been consistently reducing over the last few years. This last year, in fact, was the first time that we went below 1 at close to about 0.9. Although in real terms, the finance cost might have increased slightly, but looking at the growth in our top line, the finance cost has actually has remained more or less stagnant. So in real terms, the operations have become much more efficient. And the effort of the management is going to continue to sort of bring this finance and the interest cost down as much as possible going forward.
Okay, there was just a question, just one more question from my side. This is to do with synergies with respect to Mezzaplast. I just want to better understand as to what Skipper's role will be in this JV, and what are the synergies that can come about through this JV.
So obviously, Skipper is large participation has a large participation in the irrigation sector in India with our PVC pipes offering, and this is an effort to further value add to that sector. Drip irrigation was one sector that we were not into earlier, although it utilizes a lot of the common channel partners as well as products like PVC pipes. So this is a further value addition to our agriculture portfolio for our polymer business. And the sector as a whole also is very, very positive. It's currently pegged at around 5,000 crores. And the government's focus on this sector with various schemes like Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, etc., is definitely going to give a good push to this sector going forward.
Devesh, so drip irrigation is a new space for you. Tell us, what kind of contribution do you see from this segment on your top line and bottom line, and by which quarter can we see the numbers flowing into your P&L account?
It's still early days. It's over the next couple of months, our market entry strategy into this sector is going to be formalized as to how aggressively we want to enter into it. But I would think that the JV would basically start operations somewhere in the early part of next year. So I would not think that it's going to add to the top line anytime in the immediate coming quarters.
My last question to you is, your almost 5% of the business comes from the infra projects. Now, the government has also put a lot of thrust on the infrastructure segment. Do we see the contribution from this space going up in the coming fiscal years?
So we, as a company, we take on infra projects in a very, very selective manner. Only projects where we are absolutely certain of our capability to execute those projects as well as retain margins in them. So I would not say that we are going to aggressively grow in that business. However, it is a focus area for the company. But as how quickly we'll be able to grow in it will actually only depend on whether we are able to secure projects which are to our liking. But definitely, again, there is a lot of government push, both in the power EPC as well as railway electrification, which is, again, a very, very focused sector of the government. So we expect some growth in this business going forward, definitely.
Devesh Bansal, thanks for joining us and taking us through the outlook. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the F&O Show. But there's lots more lined up. Stay tuned into BloombergQuint.